Alright, so we are diving into a fan mod of the Coffin of Andy and Lily, but this time Ashley is swapped out for Julia. The premise is basically the same grim situation, but with a whole new dynamic. No incest plot line here, which is a major shift from the original game. The scene opens with Andrew and Julia trapped in their apartment, dealing with the harsh reality of quarantine. They are starving, and the atmosphere is bleak. Julia tries to start a conversation, but Andrew is distant and unconcerned, setting a tense mood from the get-go for their relationship. Julia starts exploring the apartment, desperately searching for food. The interactions with objects reveal a lot about her personality and her relationship with Andrew. It is clear they have been stuck here for a while, and the lack of resources is pushing them to the edge of sanity. It is revealed that Julia still talks to her sister, Jane, which is a nice detail that grounds her character outside of the apartment walls. However, the constant failed food orders hint that something is seriously wrong with their quarantine situation, and they are completely cut off from the outside world. The apartment is a mess, a physical representation of their mental state. Julia's inner monologue is full of self-deprecating humor and dark thoughts, even contemplating making a cocktail from cleaning supplies. It is a grim but relatable look at being trapped and hopeless in a bad situation. A little detail about their relationship shows Andrew can be a bit rough, pulling her hair, which Julia notes. It is a small but telling sign that their dynamic is not perfect. The mod does a good job of sprinkling in these character moments to build a more complex picture. Julia finds some of Andrew's poems, but she does not really get them. It highlights a communication gap between them, even though they are stuck together 24/7. This moment shows that physical proximity does not always equal emotional closeness, which is a running theme for them. After scavenging through their own trash, Julia finally finds a single can of tomatoes. It is a moment of pure triumph in their bleak existence. This small victory feels huge, and she is excited to show Andrew, hoping for some praise and a brief respite from their constant hunger. Andrew's reaction to the tomato can is a total letdown. He tells her they should save it, crushing her excitement. This interaction is a major bummer and shows how his pessimism often clashes with her attempts to stay positive, creating friction between the two of them. Despite Andrew's hesitation, Julia convinces him to eat the tomatoes. It is a small win for her, but it also shows the power dynamics at play. They are both starving, and her persistence pays off, even if it means going against his better judgment for their future selves. The Warden makes his first appearance, taunting them from outside the door and refusing to help. His condescending attitude makes it clear they are on their own. This guy is a real piece of work, acting like their suffering is just a game to him. They finally cook and eat the canned tomatoes, a meal that is both pathetic and deeply satisfying. It is a moment of shared experience, a small comfort in their miserable situation. The narration even points out how much better it is than Ashley's cooking, a subtle dig at the original character. A strange noise from the neighbor's apartment interrupts their meal. Curiosity gets the better of them, and they decide to investigate. This decision marks a turning point, pulling them out of their own bubble and into the even weirder drama happening next door. They discover their neighbor is trying to summon demons, which is a wild twist. It is a moment of dark comedy as they watch this guy completely fail at his ritual. The scene is both bizarre and unsettling, adding a supernatural layer to their already stressful quarantine life. The TV remote is dead, leading to a small quest for batteries. It is a mundane task that feels oddly significant. Julia's willingness to fetch them for Andrew shows her dedication. but his insistence on using the remote instead of just pushing the buttons on the TV highlights his laziness. A news report on the TV provides some world building, explaining the tainted water situation and the extended quarantine. The cheerful tone of the newscaster contrasts sharply with the grim reality of their situation, making the whole thing feel even more dystopian and out of control. A flashback reveals why Ashley is not around. She had a massive fight with Andrew over Julia and just left. This context is super important, showing that Ashley's absence was a conscious choice, unlike the parents who just abandoned them. It reframes the whole family dynamic for this mod. Another flashback shows a phone call between Julia and her sister, Jane. Jane is not a fan of Andrew at all, calling him out for not defending Julia from Ashley's harassment. It adds another layer to the story, showing that the toxicity was brewing long before the quarantine started. Julia wakes up and decides to clean the apartment, a small act of trying to reclaim some control over her environment. Andrew's reaction is a mix of concern and apathy. He warns her not to overdo it, but it feels less like caring and more like he just does not want to deal with it. The mod's technical issues are brought up, with the speaker mentioning that saving or loading can mess up the game files. This is a heads up for anyone wanting to play, and it explains why the playthrough is being done in one go. It is a classic mod life problem. From her cleaning efforts, Julia gets dizzy and faints from exhaustion and hunger. It is a stark reminder of how physically weak they have become. Andrew's concern feels a bit more genuine this time, as he tells her off for pushing herself too hard in her condition. While Julia is unconscious, Andrew gets a call from Ashley. It is clear their communication is strained and toxic, with Ashley yelling at him for not breaking her out of her own quarantined apartment. This scene shows that even though she is gone, her influence still lingers and causes problems. Julia confronts Andrew about Ashley's constant calls, and he just dismisses it as a tantrum. It is a frustrating moment because he clearly does not see how much it affects Julia. Their differing views on Ashley are a major source of conflict that keeps bubbling up. Julia tries to offer some advice on how to handle Ashley, suggesting Andrew should be more strict. This conversation is super awkward and tense, and it ultimately ends with Andrew needing a smoke to de-stress. It is clear this is a topic he would rather just avoid entirely. They witness someone from their building being taken away in an ambulance, a rare sign of outside help. It sparks a brief, dark conversation about faking a pregnancy to get food and medical attention. Andrew immediately shuts down the idea, showing his moral lines, at least for now. Andrew has a total breakdown and starts kicking the apartment door, trying to escape. The warden shows up again, threatening him to stop. This moment of desperation shows how the quarantine is really getting to Andrew, pushing him to reckless and pointless actions. In a surprisingly wholesome moment, Julia and Andrew discuss their strange situation. He admits that, aside from the starving, he enjoys being stuck there with her. It is a sweet, if slightly messed up sentiment that shows a deeper layer to their bond beyond just survival. The conversation takes a dark turn when Julia jokes about a romantic double suicide off the balcony. She describes it in graphic, poetic detail, which kind of freaks Andrew out. It is a perfect example of their shared gallows humor and the grim reality they are facing. The neighbor starts his ritual again, and Julia interacts with the demon he summons. The demon, surprisingly, is kind of a letdown. It calls her small, thanks her, and then just kills the neighbor before vanishing. It is an anticlimactic but effective way to solve their noisy neighbor problem. With the neighbor dead, the idea of eating him comes up. It is a horrifying but logical next step in their desperate situation. Andrew is the one to suggest it, showing just how far he is willing to go to survive, pulling Julia along with him. They find the neighbor's wallet filled with cash. Julia decides to split the money with Andrew, a moment that shows her inherent goodness, even in this dark situation. It is a small act of fairness in a world that has been anything but fair to them. The process of butchering the body begins, and it is as gruesome as you would expect. Andrew tasks Julia with getting plastic bags while he does the heavy lifting. They have officially crossed a line that they can never come back from, and the weight of it is palpable. After bagging up the limbs, they face the problem of the torso. Julia comes up with a clever solution to use 2 bags, earning a backhanded compliment from Andrew. Even in this horrific moment, their dynamic of bickering and problem-solving continues, which is oddly comforting. Julia cooks their first meal from the neighbor's body. The scene is tense and disgusting, as they both struggle to take the first bite. It is a powerful moment that captures the horror and desperation of what they have been forced to do to stay alive. The meal is awful, but Andrew forces himself to finish it, giving Julia the strength to do the same. His small act of support here is crucial. Afterward, he offers to let her sleep on Ashley's bed, a strange but significant gesture of comfort and trust. A long dream sequence takes us back to their childhood, retelling the infamous crate incident. However, in this version, Julia is there and is the one who ultimately discovers Nina trapped in the crate, saving her. This change completely alters Andrew's trauma and his relationship with Ashley. Back in the present, Andrew is having a full-blown panic attack about what they have done. Julia steps up to comfort him, trying to rationalize their actions as a necessity for survival. She is the strong one in this moment, guiding him through his guilt and fear. Andrew admits he could not get the neighbor's head off, a gruesome detail that sends him spiraling. Julia holds him, offering comfort and reassurance. It is a deeply intimate and twisted moment that shows how codependent they have become through this shared trauma. Julia reminds Andrew of a childhood promise he made to always be there for her. It is a callback that reinforces their long history and deep bond. She uses this memory to ground him in the present and reaffirm their commitment to each other, no matter how bad things get. As they settle down, Julia tells Andrew she loves him. His response is subdued, but it is clear her words have an impact. They decide that their grand escape will happen tomorrow, giving them a shared goal and a glimmer of hope to cling to. The next day, Julia finds herself in a tense negotiation with the Warden. She offers him her sister's number in exchange for noodles, a desperate and slightly unhinged move. The Warden is tempted but ultimately refuses, leaving her feeling defeated and more trapped than ever. The Warden enters the cultist's apartment to check on him, and things get intense. In a major twist, Julia is the one who attacks and kills the Warden to save Andrew, who was hiding in the closet. This is a huge character moment, showing she is not just a passive victim. Andrew is shaken by Julia's actions, and their conversation highlights the strain on their relationship. He is grateful but also horrified, pointing out that killing a guard just made their situation 1,000,000 times worse. The moral lines have been completely blurred for them. Andrew lays down the law. They have to disappear and cut off all contact with their families, especially Julia's sister, Jane. He threatens her, making it clear that their survival depends on absolute secrecy. It is a dark turn, showing a more controlling and paranoid side of him. Julia agrees to his terms, understanding the gravity of their situation. The conversation ends with a moment of unexpected sweetness from Andrew, where he reassures her that she is not ugly. It is a weirdly timed compliment, but it shows he does care, in his own twisted way. They find a key, and Andrew mysteriously leaves for a moment. It is revealed later he went to let Ashley out of her apartment. This off-screen action is huge, confirming that she was also trapped in the building and that Andrew chose to free her before they escaped. They encounter another resident, a woman in room 302 who is thriving in quarantine. She gets regular food deliveries and has no desire to leave. This encounter is a harsh reminder of their own suffering and the unfairness of their situation. She is living the quarantine dream. Andrew comes up with a plan to use the cultists' ritual to get rid of the second warden. He wants to lure the warden into the apartment and offer his soul to the demon. It is a crazy, high-stakes plan, but at this point, they are out of conventional options. They decide to use the walkie-talkie to call the second warden, but they need a lure. Their plan is to force the lady from 302 to make the call, using her as bait. It is a ruthless move that shows how their morality has eroded in the name of survival. Andrew holds the woman at knife point while Julia forces her to call the warden and invite him up for a good time. The scene is incredibly tense and uncomfortable. It is a new low for them, showing how easily they now resort to violence and manipulation to achieve their goals. The demon is summoned just as the warden arrives. It takes his soul and then turns its attention to Julia, commenting on how pure her soul is. The demon gives her a mysterious object for clairvoyant dreams before disappearing, leaving Julia confused but alive. This interaction is super weird. Julia returns to find that Andrew has killed the woman from 302. He claims it was self-defense, but Julia is horrified. This leads to a massive argument where she calls him out for his escalating violence and his constant defense of Ashley, bringing all their issues to a head. The argument gets incredibly personal, with Julia accusing Andrew of having disgusting, incestuous feelings for Ashley. This is the climax of their conflict, where all the unspoken tension and resentment finally boils over. The fight is raw, emotional, and threatens to tear them apart for good. Andrew, pushed to his limit, almost kills Julia. However, he pulls back at the last second, and they have a moment of reconciliation. He admits he has been neglecting her and promises to do better, choosing her over his toxic baggage with Ashley. It is a fragile truce. With a newfound resolve, they finally prepare to escape. They find a nail gun and a carpet, which they use to create a makeshift rope to climb down from a second-floor window. It is a janky but effective plan, and it feels like a real step towards freedom. They make it out of the building and have a quiet moment to process their newfound freedom. They have no real plan, but they are together and alive. The future is uncertain, but for the first time in months, they have a choice. The episode ends on this hopeful but precarious note. The final shot of the game shows Ashley in the back of the bus they are on, confirming she is following them. This sets up a major conflict for the next chapter, proving that they cannot escape their past, no matter how far they run. The drama is far from over.